Hi guys, my name is Corrie. I live in the United States in New York, specifically on Long Island. Sasha asked me to share a little bit with you about how my country is responding to the COVID-19 crisis. His first question was, is my country taking this seriously? From what I've observed, there are two groups of people in the United States right now. There are people who are taking the virus seriously and people who are not. Personally, I know people in both groups. So in the first group, you have people who think the virus is real, first of all, who know people who have gotten sick, who know people who have died of the virus, and they're being very careful. They're working from home, they're studying from home, they're keeping their kids home, they're wearing masks when they go out in public, they're eliminating unnecessary movement. And then you have another group of people who either thinks that the virus isn't real at all, or thinks that the virus isn't very serious and that the government is just trying to scare us into moving around less for a variety of supposed reasons. So you have some people who are taking it seriously and some people who are not. The next question was, what do I think about the measures my government is taking to combat the coronavirus? I have two thoughts here. My first thought is that it can be difficult to figure out what the government is actually doing. When you read articles online or watch videos online here, you get a lot of conflicting information. It's pretty obvious that there's a lot of disinformation going on. So it can be hard to figure out what the government actually is doing. That being said, my other thought is that the government response to the coronavirus here has been delayed and it has been divided. Why do I say that the government response has been delayed? Because there's evidence that the government knew about the virus and knew how serious it was long before it started warning citizens, providing protective gear, or imposing restrictions on working and traveling. So this delay has definitely impacted the amount of people who have gotten sick and died in this country. I would also say that the government response has been divided in a couple of ways. The first way, it's been divided between the federal and the state levels. In the United States, we have the federal government, but we also have very strong state governments, and historically, that divide has been a source of tension. The same thing is happening here. The federal government has certain agendas that it wants to move forward, and state governments do not always cooperate quickly with those. And so that's hindered a united nationwide response to the problem of the virus. The response has also been divided on a party level. So in the United States, we have a multi-party system, but we have two strong parties dominating the political environment, and that's the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. 2020 is a presidential election year in the United States, and so that has also hindered effective measures from being taken against the virus. No party wants to look like it's the party shutting down the economy, taking people's jobs away. So there's a lot going on that's not necessarily in the interests of keeping people healthy or keeping people safe, and more in the interests of making political parties look good for the election. So unfortunately, I would say the government response has been delayed and it's been divided and largely ineffective. The third question was, do we stay home? We do stay home. I live with my husband and my 6-month-old son, and we stay home as much as possible. My husband has been working from home for the past 3 months. I have been studying from home and keeping my son at home as much as possible. We do go for walks around the neighborhood, but we try to stay as much as possible away from other people. My husband goes out and does the grocery shopping like once a month just to minimize contact with other people at the store. We have stopped by my husband's parents' houses a few times, my baby's grandparents' houses, but we don't go inside or hug them. We just kind of sit outside and they sit a short distance away and we talk that way. But we are taking it pretty seriously and we're trying to stay in as safe as possible. The last question was, when do I think we're going to be able to start traveling again and resume our normal lives? I think that's a two-part question. So when do I think we're going to start traveling again? Nationally, within the United States, I think that's going to start happening very soon. I think it's already happening. People in the United States don't like having their movement restricted. They feel like that's an infringement on their constitutional rights. And so people here are pushing very hard to be able to move around the way they used to. Also, large corporations here in the United States have a very strong lobby or strong political influence, and so they're also pushing. Airlines, other travel companies are pushing hard to be able to operate the way they used to. So nationally, I think we're going to see travel resume as normal very quickly. Internationally, probably it's going to take longer because other countries are going to have stricter restrictions and higher thresholds for allowing travel into their countries. As far as when are we going to be able to resume our normal lives, personally, I don't think that life here in the States is ever going to go back to what it was before the pandemic. I know that our society has changed in ways that are not going to change back. So for one, our educational and work environments have changed. Schools and corporations have seen how effective distance learning and virtual workspaces can be, and they're not going to want to just bring everybody back to school or back to work and start paying all that overhead, spending all that money on those costs again. Another way that our society has changed is politically. So I think before you had a large portion of the population that really trusted the government and a portion of the population that didn't. Now, I think more than ever, people have come to see the weaknesses and failings of our government, and so there's going to be less political stability in our country than ever before. Another way that our society has changed is socially. So I think that this pandemic has affected poor communities and communities that have ethnic minorities disproportionately. So this pandemic has highlighted the inequalities in our society, and I think going forward there's going to be a stronger push than ever before for social change, for social justice, for civil rights. So things are going to look different from here on out. That being said, there are some things that don't change. I'm a Christian, and I believe that no matter what is going on in our nation, in our personal lives, in the world around us, Jesus has the answers for us. The Bible shows us the way that we should be living, regardless of what's going on around us, and so that's not going to change. That being said, you guys stay safe, keep studying your English, keep listening to Sasha. He is a great teacher, and enjoy your week.